Have you ever been on an interstate or interprovincial bus, or maybe on an international flight from, let's say, South Africa to Bangkok, but via Heathrow, London? And then after 400 kilometers of your road trip, your 600-kilometer journey, your bus is pulled over by the police and you are arrested for a crime you clearly did not commit. Or while you are in transit in Heathrow, London, only to be told that you were on a high alert hit list and your name has been flagged for arrest without proof and conviction, without trial, by a mobile court with international jurisdiction. Do you know what it is to be falsely accused, tried without the right to defend yourself, and sentenced to death with maybe, oh yes, there is a maybe, there's a possibility that you might be released to live instead of die. But you have to wait, and just maybe you will get the chance to live while your friends and family watch you but cannot touch you. That is how you feel when you get the news that you are COVID-19 positive. It's like an elephant has stepped onto your chest. You feel lost, abandoned, singled out, overtaken, kidnapped, helpless, and more. Do you know what it feels like to have food delivered to you, but it has to be left outside the gate? What it means to walk with a bottle of sanitizer to spray whatever you touch? Because if anyone else touch whatever you touch, they might be infected with a virus that may kill them. It is not a good feeling. Do you know what it is to be suffocating without even knowing it? This is what it feels like to be tested positive and infected with the COVID-19 virus. I hate to even give it a name because it has no face. Do you know what it is to be pushed off a boat in the middle of the ocean in the middle of winter with sharks swimming around you? Let's face it, we all know we are going to die sometime, but in the future. But do you know what it means to be just yanked out of the line of life and say your turn is up and the universe is considering whether it should proceed with the execution or not? Ever since the first news of the first victim of COVID-19 in South Africa, and more especially since the first national lockdown, I received many calls to intervene in families whose loved ones received the negative news of being tested positive. In other words, infected with the COVID-19 virus. I received many calls from organizations, religious organizations, to speak to their people. As a minister, I performed the funeral service of some loved ones who had to say goodbye to loved ones in sealed caskets. I had to advise people that they were not allowed to comfort the grieving families with a simple hug or handshake. It was a painful announcement to make because I know how comforting physical touch is to a grieving person. I received calls from India, Thailand, Malaysia, Philippines, Australia, some countries in Africa, to name a few, to console or counsel, to encourage or even convince patients that it was necessary to go to the hospital and that they should not be afraid. They won't die simply because others died in hospital. There was fear in the air. The number of Zoom meetings were overwhelming, and at one point I chose not to accept any more appointments to speak. Every social media platform was saturated with messages to help us through the pandemic. Fake news were making the news. Religion was losing its grip. Politics was confused, which was not unusual. Emotions were running high. Previously, doctors insisted on seeing patients before writing prescriptions because it was irresponsible to prescribe without physically examining the patient. But now suddenly, They could do it over the phone. Yes, COVID-19 disrupted the world as we knew it. How do we bounce back and rebuild a better life? Political statements, internet sermons, anxiety pills, repetitive mantras, and shallow advice is just not enough. As the line on the COVID-19 graph increased, panic, anxiety, fear, stress, and depression increased 10 times more. And when the curve is flattened, the real dilemma is exposed: depression, stress, and anxiety. Can you imagine its combined effect on your immune system, your will to live, and courage to carry on? Just when you thought the angel of death had passed your door and you came outside to breathe again, for a moment, that dark, faceless virus looked over his shoulder and saw you. As if through a wireless connection, you were within its range. You can't explain it. Is it a centrifugal force or a gravitational pull? You don't know, but you are in it. You cannot wing it this time. My conversations with many family and friends, colleagues, and neighbors were similar, but never the same. Everyone had their own opinion, a different experience. For some, it was the headaches. For another, the fever, and yet another, the tightness of the chest. It was different for everybody, but the mental and emotional strain was common for everyone. I have been teaching resilience and resilient thinking. So when the second medical doctor called me because she was feeling helpless and hopeless to help a family member, I had to remind her in a WhatsApp message, and I quote, "Again," I told her, "limit your exposure to negative news for your own mental and emotional equilibrium, and in that way you will be able to serve and help more. God bless." I ended my message. Your own experience will be different from the person next to you, correct? Suddenly, people were requesting virtual meetings to receive encouragement and hope. I had to record many messages for different people from different religious persuasions. It was a race, to say the least. At the very first awareness of the pandemic, we had a family discussion and we agreed on the ground rules. Rule number 1, get a grip, remain calm, don't panic. It's easy to say and sound strategic when you are not infected or fighting for your life, right? Of course it is easy, and that is why you must say it multiple times in multiple places to prepare you for the unlikely event or likely event of the inevitable. It is easy to have answers when you are not infected. It is easy to make suggestions when you are breathing unassisted. Yes, it is easy to give advice from the sidelines. What some people don't know is that I do not prescribe a course of action or mindset if I will not be willing to embrace it if I were in their shoes. That's exactly what happened. That is why I am passionate about what I do, because I believe it. And if I were in your shoes, you can bet your last penny that I will revert to the course of action I prescribed to others. It is plain unethical and immoral to prescribe something you don't believe in. I think it might be legal, but my conscience wouldn't allow me to. I believe in the taste of my own medicine. August 19, 2021 was a turning point when I had to be on the other end of the line, the receiving end. I tested positive. What did I do? As a family, we had a quick meeting, maintaining social distance. Rule number 1, don't panic. It was easy because we simulated the response many times. I was mentally prepared. We shunned catastrophic thinking. I informed a friend on WhatsApp. This is what I wrote. I went to sleep late at night. Did the COVID-19 symptoms get better or worse? I want so much to answer this question with reality. But sometimes reality is not real. The real truth, not a version of the truth, is that I am of sound mind and I believe that there is an intimate connection between body and the mind. And tonight I reminded my body that it needs to listen to the brain and align itself with my thoughts. My feelings and body is now subject to my mind. There's going to be a little struggle, but my thoughts are going to win in the end. I had to take charge of my thoughts and how I feel, because what and how I think also affects my immune system and my recovery. I believe that as a man thinks, so is he. I believe that what you think, you are. You are not what you think you are, but you are what you think. Don't underestimate the power of your mind over your body in both cases to accelerate the spread of disease and to decrease the impact of sickness and disease, and also give you the mind you need to go through it till the end. Did I eat, rest, take any medication, etc., besides what I am sharing on these self-talks? Of course I did. I am deliberately highlighting this component of the healing equation because it is often underestimated, underrated, and downplayed, yet so important. Ask anyone who survived. Everything that I shared in these self-talks is what I shared with those with whom I had to counsel, pray with, and encourage, whose family members or they themselves were infected with COVID-19 and they survived. The virus turned my way and I had to practice what I was preaching. I made a video with highlights of my exercise routine of the day. My friend Neville called me and we laughed a lot. He told me that I was crazy. I told him that everyone I spoke to who had already survived the virus attack all reiterated one thing in common. It will take some time for the body to be completely healed, and that the capacity of the lungs will increase and improve over time. I determined in my heart and mind that I am not going to allow my lungs to deteriorate or shrink in capacity. Others were not so fortunate, and my heart goes out to them. I am not the most healthy person and far from being the most religious person, but I am determined. I believe in the law of cause and effect, that is consequences. I know that if I live by certain principles, then the natural consequences is almost guaranteed. I say almost because not everything in this life is in your hands. But we do our best and hope for the best result. Now let me reiterate something I mentioned earlier. I did not suddenly think this way when I was tested COVID-19 positive. More than a year ago, I designed a game plan of how to overcome the negative effects of COVID-19. I designed it for myself and family when the world was still confused. I used the same principles in my advice and counsel and prayers for the many people who reached out to me for help, whether they were medical doctors or not. When it was my turn, when I was tested COVID-19 positive, because I rehearsed it so many times, it was a little easier. My experience can be yours, and I recommend the course that prepared me, the course Equilibrium, which was designed for us for such a time as this. You can register and complete the short course. You will not regret it. It will be one of the most proactive steps you can take before, during, or after COVID-19. From my experience, before is best. It will empower you to help those who need your help, who are infected or affected, and it will help you if you need it, not just for COVID-19. I can confirm that. They say that God helps those who help themselves. That statement is not entirely true, but the truth in it is worth taking seriously. In the next and final self-talk, I'm going to share with you a video that I recorded for my daughter. I wrote a letter and used the letter as the script for the video. It might sound opinionated and headstrong. I hope you reserve your judgment. I hope that the previous self-talks, including this one, would be the context that you bear in mind as you listen. It is a message that I recorded after I was tested COVID-19 positive. I summarized my plan of action and explained how important it is to engage the mind in the healing process while following medical advice. The fight against COVID-19 is not just physical, but also mental. I recorded the next video on my 8th day of recovery. I am now fully recovered. When an invading enemy like a virus threatens your life, then you have to engage your most advanced weapon in the fight. That is your mind. Most people haven't emphasized the importance of the right state of mind during this pandemic. I hope to change that.
COVID-19 disrupted the world as we knew it. Don't let COVID-19 get the better of you. Take proactive steps to protect yourself against the negative mental and emotional effects of COVID-19. You don't have to feel overwhelmed, powerless, or incapacitated. Register for Equilibrium, maintaining mental and emotional well-being today. Learn the art and skill of maintaining mental and emotional well-being. This is your first and best investment post-COVID-19. Show COVID-19 who's the boss. Bounce back to equilibrium.